For more updates, click on subscribe and click on bell button for latest notifications.
Hi friends, welcome to Tech Arkit YouTube channel. My name is Ravi. In this video session, we are going to see the Linux interview questions and answers every Linux admin must know. So these are the very basics to the advanced any administrator who is attending the interview. These are the common questions which are asked in every interview, and this is the part 2 which covers around 36 questions and answers for every administrator should learn and must known questions and answers for basics to the advanced any interview. So there from 4 to 5 questions would be covered from this interview questions. So let's see that what are those and how they looks like here. So what is SSH tunnel? So what is SSH tunnel? SSH tunnel is also known as a SSH port forwarding, a secure encrypted connection established between a local computer and the remote server through the secure shell protocol. So this is basically a SSH protocol. Example, if you do not have the internet on your remote machine, but you have the internet access on the other machine, what you can do is that you can run the tunnel. So example, if you install the putty software on your machine, then there is a option called tunnel. Then you can enable the remote port number and the local port numbers, which will make the tunnel between those two, and you can browse the internet connection. So it allows you to securely forward network connections between the local and remote host, providing a secure channel for accessing the network services are bypassing the network restrictions because it's a local network. So basically, if you have the same tunnel, the same port number is enabled, using the same port number you can make the SSH tunnel between the remote computer and the local computer. So that's the SSH tunnel is useful. How to set the command history size? So how you can set the command history size, how many commands should be have on the history, so that how many commands can be retrieved, right? So if you set 10,000, so whatever the command you type, 10,000 will be there, and 10,001 command will be erased from the history. So that's the command history, how you can set that. To set the command history size in a Linux, you can modify the value of the hist size variable in a shell configuration file. The specific file to edit the depends on the shell you are using. So whatever the shell you are using, example, you are using bash rc or ksh or csh or whatever the bash shell you are using, there would be a rc file. In that, what you can do is that you can edit that bash rc file, and you can use ist size equal to the number, whatever the number you wanted to size it. Then example, 50,000, 30,000, 1 lakhs. So how much history size you want to keep it, that much number you can save it and say source and provide the bash rc file location, so that it will by default located in the home directory. Then it will actually do the execution of bash rc file, or log out from the user and log in back, so that would be take effective of the history size. How to extend VG? So how we can extend the volume group to add more space to the VG? So what you can do, so first of all, you have to have the new disk to create the PV. So assume that you already have SDC, then SDC1, just say PV create SDC1, it will create the physical volume. Then what you can do, VG extend the VG name and the PV name, so it will extend the VG. So that's how we can extend the VG. What are logical and extended partitions? So what is mean by the logical partition and the extended partition? What is the main difference between these two? So logical partitions are the partitions created within the extended partition, allowing you to overcome the limitation of maximum of 4 primary partitions in MBR partition scheme. So example, if you directly create the partitions without creating any extended partition, the max is 4 partitions you can create as a primary partitions. But if you create the extended partition, in that you can create the multiple logical partitions. So that is the main difference between the logical and extended partitions. The extended partition serves as a container for these logical partitions, facilitating the creation of more than 4 partitions on a disk. So example here you can see that. So here if you see that the green line here, the thick green line, extended partition here, within that you can see that there are the logical partitions. You can see that that is called as a blue lines, and one is a green one which is free space, right? So this is the logical partition. So the green line extending is a extended partition. Extended partition does not have any partition numbers or anything, so it just say container. So within that you can create a number of logical partitions. That is the difference between the logical and extended partition. Explain the steps to reset the root password at the boot time. So how you can reset the root password in case if you forgot it. So this works if you do not have the grub password enabled, then you can reset the password. Otherwise, if grub password is already enabled, then you cannot reset the password from the boot menu. Let's see, stop at the kernel level. Example, if you press the power button and your Linux machine is switching on, so whenever you see the kernel, then press any press bar or anything, so it will stop at the kernel level. Then press E to edit the kernel line. So what you can do, just press the press bar, space bar, and it will stop at the kernel line, and select the kernel line and press E, so it will edit the kernel line. Then add the definition here, this one, rd.break console equal to tti1, where Linux 16, the line starts with Linux 16. End of that, add this rd.break console equal to tta1, then press Ctrl X, so it will continue to execute that one. And once it will executed, you will load into the single user mode. Then there the file system, actually the sysroot file system will be mounted as a read-only file system. So you have to mount using the read write, using the mount-o remount and read write slash sysroot. So it will remount that file system with the read write options, so that you can modify the any programs or execute any program, so that it modify the files. Otherwise read-only file system cannot be modified. So you can do the chroot slash sysroot, so you will become a root user. Then execute the password command, and you can enter the password and confirmation password. The password would be updated. After that, create auto relabel file and the slash. So what is the use of this auto relabel? Will be used for to relabel all the SC Linux policies on the system. So if you do not do this, then once you reset the password, if you reboot it without doing this auto relabeling, then you cannot able to log in, because the SC Linux will not be reloaded. If the SC Linux is already enabled, then you won't be able to log into the machine. So that's why do not forget, touch slash dot auto relabel is the file which will auto relabel your SC Linux policies and each and every files and directories, so that it will be authored to the SC Linux policies, whatever the level, service level, file level, and every port level as well, right? So then exit two times, then it will reboot your machine, then log in with your new password, whatever you set on the reset password. What are run levels? Targets, which means in new version like from RHL 7 onwards, they call it as a target. In older version like RHL 6 and RHL 5, they call it as a run levels. How many types? Explain. So the question is, what are run levels? How many types? Explain. So run levels are pre predefined operating states or modes in Unix-like systems, including Linux. Each run level represents a specific configuration on system services and processes. The run level concept is used primarily for system initialization, shutdown, and transitioning between different operational modes. So that's the run level. So what are the run levels you have here in Linux? The traditional run levels are follows. 0, run level 0 is called as a halt. The system shutdown state, the system halted and powered off. Example, if the run level is 0, then the system is halted or powered off. If run level is set as a 1, which is called as a single user mode, also known as maintenance mode or rescue mode. It provides a minimal environment with a root shell used for system maintenance or troubleshooting tasks. Run level 2, which is called as a multi-user mode without networking, similar to run level 3, but without networking services enabled. This run level is not commonly used in many Linux distributions. Uh, Run level 3, which is a multi-user mode with networking, the standard multi-user mode with networking, which is called as a CLI mode. Basically, it does not have any graphical user mode, so everything the services as enabled, but it does not have the GUI here. Run level 4. This run level is not defined by default, can be configured as per the system requirement. So this is a custom module where you can define anything on this here. Run level 5, which is a graphical user interface fully used for multi-user mode with the graphical desktop environment. This run level system boots into the graphical user interface for user-friendly desktop experience. So example, if you boot into the user the Linux system with the graphical user mode, which is called as a graphical user mode. Um, the run level 6 is a system reboot. Example, say INIT6 if you type it. So which is say initiate a reboot. So that's the run level 6. So these are the run level exist on the run levels. How we can change the run level or target. So how we can change the run level in a Linux machine. So example, if you did the /etc/init tab, that is a file. So where you have this line ID :5 initiator default. So that is an initiate the run level default. Okay, so if you put it as a 5, that is a run level 5. If it is put it as a 1, that is run level 1. If it is put it as a 6, run level 6. So we used to play this like whenever we get to know that okay, if you put this run level 6, the start system starts reboot, starts reboot, starts reboot. So that we used to play that with when we are initially learning the system. So do not turn on 6 or 0 or 1. So it in basically go into the shutdown mode or the coming to the single user mode. So that would be a for the basic users that might not understand what it is. Okay, but if you know that you already set this run level as a 5, so it boot into the graphical user mode in latest like RCL 7, 8 or 9. So how you can set that target? You can use the systemctl set default graphical user graphical dot target. So that is a target you can set it. So that way it comes into the graphical user mode. So that way you can set it graphical user mode or the CLI mode or the multi-user mode. So there are multi targets you can set it up on the here. How to check logs? So the logs can be checked. You can use the tail command, tail -f /or/log messages, or any of the log files. You can use the tail command to do that, or you can also use cat like cat/war/log/ cron messages or messages or whatever the log files. So the all the most of the log files would be located on the var location /war/log. So there you can cat it, or you can use the tail, or you can use the more command. Okay, or you can also use the dmessage command, which is actually used show the how the system is booted and what went wrong or what loaded while booting the system. So this is how you can check the logs. The next question is difference between journalctl and tail commands. Journalctl. The journalctl command retrieves log data from the systemd journal. Systemd is a system initialization and service manager used in many modern Linux distributions. Systemd captures log messages from various sources, including the kernel, system services, and applications, and store them in a binary format known as journal. Example, if you try to restart any service, the service will give any errors or any warnings or anything. So the journal will store that journal in a binary format. So if you want to see that log, what is the service error or what is went wrong, you can use the journal.ctl command to um, check that service errors or service warnings or service messages, anything. Okay, so that's the journal.ctl. Tail command. So the tail command is basically used for parsing the logs. Like on the other hand, is a general purpose command that reads log file directly from the file system. It displays the last few lines by default. So you can set that how many lines you want, like 100 lines, 200 lines, 1000 lines, whatever it is, of a given file. The log file accessed by tail can be traditional text-based log file generated by the applications or the system services. So that is the major difference between the general CTL and tail commands. How to archive a file. How you can archive a file in a Linux. To archive a file or a directory in Linux, you can use tar command, which stands for tape archive. The tar command is commonly used for creating the compressed or uncompressed archive files. Either you can create compressed file or uncompressed corporate file. So what is the mean between that? So you can watch a tar command. I have explained in detail what is archive, what is not archive, or the compress or not compressed. So you can see there is a tar uh, command examples. I have given in detailed examples in that video. So how we can create the tar file here, archive file, tar-cvf, and you can provide the file name .tar and provide the path so that it will actually archive the thus data which is located in the file, or it might be the file or it might be the folder. What does the subscription manager do? What does the subscription manager do? Subscription manager is a command. What actually it's do? The subscription manager command is utility tool used in Red Hat Linux RHEL and related distributions to manage software subscription and registration with the Red Hat Subscription Management Service. It's used for managing tracking software elements, enabling access to Red Hat software repositories, and ensuring the system remains properly licensed and supported. Example, if you are using the any Red Hat machine for the production purpose or commercial purpose, you have to have the subscription. Otherwise, it's a license violation. The subscription manager will help you to enable the subscription so that you can enable the repositories and download the patches and updates. Everything you can do is using the subscription. Of course, you have to have the internet access enabled to that. What is UMask? UMask stands for User File Creation Mode Mask. Example, User File Creation Mode Mask. It is a 4-digit octal number that determines the default permissions or mode for newly created files and directories. That's the definition of the UMasks. The umask value is used as a mask to modify the default permissions applied when a file or directory is created. It works by subtracting the umask value from the maximum permissions allowed. The resulting permission bits determine the actual permissions of the newly created file or directory. Example, whenever you create any new file in the Linux or any new directory in the files or directories, that has by default some permissions, right? Example, read, write, read, write, read, or read, or read, write executable in the directory, read, write, something like that, right? For the directories or files. So how does files permissions are derived? So based on the umask value is defined. So that's how the files will be permissions will be applied, file permissions will be derived from that umask value. So I have explained the detailed umask value definitions in another video, which is a RHCSA, a complete video. So in that I have explained what is umask, how the umask will be calculated for the files and directories, how we can derive with the value, what is the best value you can set for that, and everything is explained in that value. So if you're interested more in that, you can watch that video and learn that you must detailed information. How to kill a process. Example, how to kill a process from using the process table. So it's a simple, very simple, kill -9 and provide it the PID value. So which kills that PID, so that it send the actually kill signal to that PID, so that PID will go off. Example, kill -9, the PID value is 1099, so that it will kill that process. How to assign IP address manually. So how we can assign the IP address manually to the system. So how we can do that. Example, edit the configuration file in if it is a domain based system like /etc netplan, something like zero, the configuration file.aml file. So there will be a common file will be there using the zero dash. So that file you have to edit and add the IP address details and the network interface details, right? And name servers and gateways, all this stuff, subnet mask and everything. Then you can apply netplan apply, so that it will apply the IP address for that one. Or in a Linux based systems, you can use /etc/sysconfig/network network scripts and if cfg dash eth0 or adh1 em1 or em2. There are depends on the hardware, there will be a configuration file like eth1 eth0 or em1 em2, and there would be a different configuration files like if you are creating the bonding, right, the LACP group, then that would be interface group. It's going to be a bond 012 something like that. You can use any of the configuration file, edit that configuration file and define the IP address, netmask, gateway, name server details and everything, and restart the network service. So that's how we can apply the IP address. Or if you want to apply in a latest missions like RHCL, from starting from the RHCL 7, you can use the nmcli command. So the connections, where the connections will be applied the IP address. Basically, this is a logical interface configuration, which is not a physical interface configuration, where everything is a connection on the RSCL 7 starting from. So that's where you can use this nmcli command to apply the IP address, gateway, DNS, alternate DNS, or you can also use the auto start anything options over here. So that's how you can apply the IP address manually to the Linux systems. The next question is explain the different types of Linux process states. So what are the Linux process states and explain them. Example, if you see the running status is R, a capital R, a running process is currently being executed by the CPU. It is actively using CPU resources and making progress. So that is the state or process state. Sleeping S, a capital S, is a sleeping process, is in waiting state and not actively running on the CPU. It is waiting for an event or some resources to become available, such as IO, disk IO competition, or signal. Or sleeping processes do not consume CPU resources until the event they are waiting for occurrence. So example, when the event triggers, that sleeping becomes a running process, so it runs and actively uses the CPU usage. Uh, Interruptible sleep, example DRS. So this state is similar to the sleeping state, but indicates that the process is waiting for a specific event that can be interrupted by a signal For example, a process waiting for an IO can be interrupted by a signal and transitioned to a different state. So it might be a sleeping state, like it might be killed after, or it might be going to the uninterruptible sleep. So anything can be possible here. The next The next sleep state is uninterruptible sleep. So, is an uninterruptible sleep is a state indicates that the process is waiting for a particular event or resource that cannot be interrupted by signals. So, any signal cannot be interrupted that process, but a particular event can do the process change from uninterruptible to the sleeping state, or it might be running state. This state is often seen when a process is waiting for a hardware device or performing a critical system operations. So that's the uninterruptible sleep. Next state is T, capital T, is a stopped process or suspended or no longer executing. It can be stopped by a user by receiving a specific signal. Example, instead of kill signal, you can send the stop signal like 6 stop. The process will be stopped. Process can be stopped, or it might be resumed afterwards, or it might be terminated. As otherwise, you can do anything. So if you stop it, either you can resume it, or you can terminate it. Either you can do using that. um, Z is a zombie process. A zombie process is a terminated process that has completed its execution, but its process entry remains in a process table until the parent process retrieves its existing status. Example, any process which is running and completed its execution, but unfortunately, the execution is completed. The process state is already complete, but the parent process does not understand whether the child process is completed or not, and it exited. Then the process becomes completed, but it still stays on the process table. That's called as a zombie process. Zombie is nothing but a died process which still exists on the process table. Zombie processes do not consume system resources but indicate that the parent process has not yet collected the termination status. So that's the zombie process. Orphan process is a child process whose parent process has terminated or is no longer active. Orphan processes are adapted by the INIT process, usually with the process ID 1, and continue their execution until they are terminated. Example, any process execution is doing roughly, then unfortunately the parent process exited without exiting its child processes, then those processes become orphan. Example, who um, leaves the children's without their responsibility, those children become orphans, right? Or suddenly their parents died, so the children become orphan. So that's a bad example, but that's how the orphan processes become, and that orphan processes will be adapted by the system D processes, and it provides the process tree so that until they execute and terminate properly. That's the process states and their execution status. What is KVM? KVM is a kernel based virtual machine. It's an open source virtualization technology that allows you to run multiple virtual machines on a Linux host. Example, if you have the physical machine, top of that, if you install the KVM package, so that converts a kernel based virtual machine. In that, you can run multiple virtual machines. It is built into the Linux kernel and utilizes hardware virtualization extensions present in modern CPUs to be provide efficient secure virtualization capabilities. So that's the KVM stands for. KVM acts as a hypervisor, which is responsible for creating and managing their virtualized environment for running guest operating systems. It allows you to run various operating systems, including Linux, Windows, other concurrently on a single physical machine. Example, so that's how the virtual environments runs on a physical environment, but this is not a complete server virtualization. This is just like in a desktop virtualization where you have the operating system. Top of that, you install some package. The package will act as a hypervisor layer. Top of that, you can host the guest virtual machines and run any operating systems you want, not a IBM AX or the Apple Macintosh, but any other operating systems you can run it. What is hypervisor? A hypervisor is also known as a virtual machine monitor, is a software or hardware component that enables virtualization and allows multiple operating systems or virtual machines to run on a single physical machine. So that is the basically difference. The hypervisor basically converts all the hardware components into a virtualized environment so that you can host multiple virtual machines to use that hardware as a software component to the virtual machines. The primary purpose of the a hypervisor is to create and manage virtualized environments, providing isolation and resource allocation for each virtual machine. It abstracts the underlying physical hardware and presents it to the virtual machines as if they have direct access to it. This enables efficient sharing of computing resources and facilitates the consolidation of multiple workloads onto a single server. So the single physical server can run a multiple workloads by converting the physical hardware as a virtualized so that you can run multiple virtual machines on top of that hypervisor layer. So that's the meaning of hypervisor. Difference between MBR and GPT. So what is the major difference between the MBR and GPT and how we can differentiate that? Let's see. MBR is stands for Master Boot Record. GPT stands for GUID Partition Table. MBR uses 32-bit partition table entries, limiting the maximum number of partitions to 4 primary partitions or 3 primary partition and 1 extended partition. The maximum disk size supported for the MBR is max 2 terabytes. You cannot go behind the 2 terabytes. GPT uses 64-bit partition table entries, allowing a significantly larger number of partitions. It can support up to 128 primary partitions by default. GPT supports much larger disk sizes with a maximum capacity of 9.4 zettabytes. So that's a more than what you are expecting or what you are using in a real time. So that would be a huge support for the GPT partition types. MBR uses traditional partitioning scheme where MBR contains the partition table and the bootloader. MBR relies on a single boot sector located at the beginning of the disk. So the MBR basically provides the boot support. So if you are doing a GPT partition and load the operating system, so the boot partition must require to be in MBR. So that's the major difference here. GPT uses a more modern partitioning scheme. It stores a partition table and bootloader information in a multiple copies through the disk, providing redundancy and improved reliability. MBR has limited flexibility in terms of partitioning. It only supports up to 4 primary partitions. To create more than 4 partitions, one of the primary partitions need to be converted into extended partition, which can then hold multiple logical partitions. So that's the funda here. So if you want to create a primary partitions, you can create up to max 4. But if you create one extended, you can create multiple logical partitions in it. You see? Extended partition just act as a container. In that you can create multiple logical partitions. GPT offers more flexibility for partitioning. It supports larger number of primary partitions and does not require the use of extended or logical partitions. This allows for easier management of partitions, especially on larger storage devices. So basically, if you have a normal devices which is lesser than 2 terabytes, you may go to the MBR that would flexibly operates your file systems or the partitions. But if you want to go a more than 2 terabyte disk size places, maybe you have to go to the GPT file types. So that's the difference between the MBR and the GPT partition types. What is cron? How to set up a cron job? So what is a cron and how to set up a cron job? Cron is a time-based job scheduler in Unix-like operating system. It allows users to schedule and automate recurring tasks or commands to run at specific intervals or times. This task, known as cron jobs, can include various system maintenance activities, backups, data synchronization, and other routine operations. Example, if you want to run any commands, any particular specific intervals. Like example, I want to collect the system CPU utilization at every 5 minutes to analyze that how a CPU utilization is running on my system. So what you can do, you can just use cron tab -e to edit the cron tab entry and add the cron tab entry over there. Like it has a 5 fields like minutes, hours, like um, then you can enter those values, then add the script or the command so that it will execute on the specific time. How you can mount a file system permanently? How you can mount the file system permanently? Example, if you just mount it using the mount command, when you reboot your system, so the partition will go off. So if you want to permanently mount, what you can do, to mount a file system permanently in a Linux, you can make use of /etc/fstab file. You have to edit that file, and that that fstab file contains the file system to be mounted at the boot time. So you have to add example like this entry. It's like the device name and the mount point and the file system and the values. Example, it's by default most of the time defaults, and 1 and 2 to be error verified and checked while booting. So this is the options is a minimal to enter into the fstab value. Then once you reboot the machine, it will be auto mounted or permanently mounted. That's called as a permanent mount entry. What is Kickstart? Kickstart is an automated installation system used Red Hat Linux distributions such as Red Hat Enterprise Linux or CentOS. It allows for unattended installation for operating system on a multiple machines, saving time, efforts during the installation process. Example, a Kickstart will help you to do the a similar installation or the intact installation to the multiple servers or multiple machines. Example, if you are installing the operating systems on a multiple physical servers like 50 to 100 machines, then while installing you might select this option, that option, this partition, something like that, right? But if you want to create a intact the same configuration system, same packages, same username, same process, then you can follow the kickstart installation. Then this is an unattended installation where it will give you the provide the same intact installation for the 100 computers or the 100 servers. With Kickstart, you can create a configuration file commonly known as Kickstart file. So you just do the uh, Kickstart file where it is defined that create a boot partition of 2 GB, a root partition of 100 GB, create this user, that user, post installation, script package selection, and everything. You can put it on that configuration file. Specify all installation settings such as partitioning, package selection, network configuration, user creation, post installation scripts. The file serves an answer file, like it will automatically answer to the while installing the operating system. if you install it manually, you select like this is my keyboard settings, this is my language preference, this is my partition type, this is my uh, package selection and all, right? But here you wanted to do it manually, you just create an auto answer file and do using that file, so it will automatically do the installation for you with a similar and intact configuration to the 100 servers. How to create a network bridge in Linux. Identify the network interfaces which you want to make it as a bridge. Install the bridge utilities. Example, let me take it install bridge utils. Configure the bridge interface using the brctl add br name like br0 and edit that interfaces slash etc slash network interfaces and or add the information like what is the IP address information, all the details, and add this uh, interface to that bridge like the ethernet 0 ethernet 1, then if up and bring up the bridge, so that way so you can make the bridge available in the Linux machine. So here we have the difference between IP tables and firewall D. So what is the major difference between the IP tables and firewall D? So IP tables and firewall D. IP tables is a traditional and widely used command line tools for managing a net filter firewall infrastructure in the Linux kernel. So this is basically a net filters on the kernel layer. The kernel module uses the net filters to do the rules on the IP tables. Firewall D is a dynamic firewall management tool that provides a higher level interface and abstraction layer for managing firewall rules. IP tables uses a rule-based system to filter network traffic, allowing or blocking packets based on the various criteria such as source, destination IP addresses, ports, protocols, and connection states. Firewall D is designed to simplify the firewall configuration by utilizing the firewall zones, services, rich rules. IP tables operates using a set of predefined chains, example input, output, forward, and allows users to create custom chains to implement specific firewall rules. A firewall D allows the users to define firewall rules based on predefined services such as custom services, making it easier to manage firewall settings for specific applications or services. IP tables, it requires manual configuration of rules using the command line syntax, and the rules must be saved and loaded manually or through startup scripts. That's the IP tables. Firewall D, it supports runtime configuration changes without interrupting the active connections. For example, when a new service is enabled or a rule is modified, Firewall D can apply the changes without disturbing existing connections. So that is the major difference between the IP tables and the Firewall D. Both uses net filters to do the rules for the input and incoming and outgoing traffic, uh, and it makes the difference that IP tables uses the ports protocols connection states to filter the traffic, but the firewall do is differently differentiate that firewall zones, so which zone is active and what zones contains the what services to be allowed and what rich rules like for port forwarding are the forwarding rules enabled or the source and destination IPs are load on the rich rules. So that differs between the IP tables and the firewall T. Next question is what is SE Linux? SE Linux is a secure enhanced Linux is security framework implemented in the Linux kernel that provides mandatory access control policies. It is designed to enforce fine-grained access control policies that go behind the traditional discretionary access control like DAC. model based by the standard Linux permissions. So SC Linux provides a three-layer of security. Example, it actually defines the port level security, service level security, and configuration level security, like the file access level and port level and service level. So if port is allowed, it verifies the service is allowed or not. If the service is allowed, it checks the file permissions, whether the file is marked are contexted as a service or not. So that way, three-layer security can be provided using the SC Linux. What is iSCSI and Target CLI? iSCSI means Internet Small Computer System Interface is a protocol that allows the transmission of SCSI, Small Computer System Interface, commands and data over an IP network, typically Ethernet. It enables storage devices known as iSCSI targets to be shared and accessed remotely by other devices called as iSCSI initiator, as if they were locally attached storage devices. iSCSI provides a method for remote block storage access, allowing storage resources to be shared over a network. So basically, the iSCSI network will save more of the money to the IT industry. Like if you want to attach a black storage using block level storage attaching the SAN network, so you have to buy the FC interfaces, FCHPAs, FC switches, and attach that FC network and zone that and map that. But the iSCSI will smartly act and present the block level storage to the servers using the iSCSI network or the over the Ethernet existing Ethernet connection. So that's the major difference it provides, and it provides the flexibility to map the block storage to the servers. It uses a TCP/IP protocol suite to establish the connections between iSCSI initiator client and the iSCSI target server. Target CLI is a command line management interface for configuring and managing the iSCSI targets on a Linux system. So that is the iSCSI and Target CLI. It is a part of LIO Linux IO project, which provides an open source iSCSI target implementation for the Linux. Difference between the NFS and Samba. So what is the difference between the NFS and SMB or Samba server, NFS server? Let's see. NFS is called as a network file system. Samba is called as a server messaging block, which is called as an SMB. NFS is network file sharing protocol developed by Sun Microsystems and commonly used in Unix-like operating system, including Linux and various flavors of Unix. Samba is open source implementation of the SMB, server messaging block, and CIFS, which is a common internet file system protocols which are used for file and printer sharing in Microsoft Windows environments. It designed NFS is designed for sharing the files and directories among multiple clients and servers over a network, which is in a Unix to Unix or the Linux to Linux environment. Samba is allows Linux and Unix-like system to seamlessly integrate into the Windows networks and shares resources with Windows clients. So there is a cross-platform access between the Linux and the Windows. NFS operates at the file system level, allowing clients to mount remote directories for NFS servers as if they were local directories. Samba provides a file and printing services, authentication services, and name resolution services compatible with Windows systems. NFS, it uses remote procedure call, which is called as a name RPC mechanism to communication between the clients and services. The Samba supports features such as file sharing, printer sharing, user authentication, domain controller functionality, and interoperations with a Active Directory platform. So that is the difference between the NFS and the Samba. What is NFS Nobody? NFS Nobody is a default user and group name used in NFS configurations. it is commonly used as an anonymous or unprivileged user group for handling the file access permissions when accessing the NFS shares. Example, if you mount the NFS share, if you place the files by default, NFS nobody is the user, which actually provides the file owner and the group permissions by default. When an NFS server exports a file system, it associates the various permissions and ownership attributes with the files and directories within this file system. However, when a client system accesses those files over NFS, it may not have the same user group identifiers defined on the server. This is where NFS nobody comes into a play. What is SSHFS? SSHFS is a file system client that allows you to mount remote file systems over the SSH connection. It enables you to access and interact with the files on a remote server as if they were local files on your own system. Example, you can mount the remote file system on your files server or the remote server. So just you can utilize as your local files. Use SSHFS, you need to have SSH client software installed on your local system. Our SSH server software is running on the remote server. You can then use SSHFS commands or graphical tool to mount and unmount the remote file systems as needed. What is Kerberos? Kerberos is a network authentication protocol designed to provide a secure authentication for client-server applications in distributed computing environment. It allows entities like users, services, etc. to provide the proof or their identity to each other even over an insecure network by using the symmetric key cryptography. Example, so what it do is that it actually generates some tokens like the KDC. It uses the KDC method and the token mechanism, like it to issue the token and it reaches to the users authenticating the some services. Example, NFS with the Kerberos enabled, it actually issue the ticket. The ticket is valid, the authentication is valid. So that's the Kerberos works. How to secure NFS with Kerberos? To secure the NFS with Kerberos, you need to enable the Kerberos authentication for NFS clients and servers. So you have to what you have to do, you have to build the KDC environment, the Kerberos environment, and you have to join both of the client and servers to the Kerberos environment, and you can mount that NFS using the KRB5 parameters in a FS tab so that it can authenticate the NFS using the Kerberos authentication. Set up a Kerberos infrastructure as up using a Kerberos realm and configure the Kerberos key distribution like the KDC server. This involves setting up the Kerberos configuration files, creating Kerberos principles for NFS clients and servers, and generating the key tab files. What is the difference between Telnet and SSH? Telnet and SSH both are network protocols used for remote connection with a server, but basic difference is that Telnet does not encrypt the connection, but SSH do the encrypt the connection. The security example, if you take the security, Telnet sends the data in clear text, which means that all communication, including the username, passwords, and commands, is transmitted in a plain text format. This makes it vulnerable or eavesdropping and interception. Example, so it actually transmitting the username, passwords, commands, and everything is in a clear text. Somebody tap your network connection, they can get username, passwords, commands, whatever you are transferring or the telnet, they can tap up it. But on the other hand, SSH encrypts the entire communication session, providing the secure and confidential transmission of the data over the network. So they can transfer the data over the network by encrypting, like it uses the private and public key encryption method, and data will be encrypted at the source and send it to the destination. The destination can unencrypt and read the data. So that's how the data, if you tap somebody, they get some random characters or the random numbers, random hash values, something like that, but they cannot get actual values. Encryption, Telnet does not provide any encryption by default, whereas SSH uses the strong encryption algorithms to protect the confidentiality and integrity of the data during transmission. It encrypts all communication, including login credentials and commands, making it much more secure than Telnet. Authentication, Telnet relies on a basic username password authentication, which susceptible to interception and unauthorized access. In contrast, SSH supports a various authentication methods, including public key authentication, which offers stronger security by using cryptographic key page for authentication purpose. So that is the difference between the Telnet and SSH. What is DHCP? DHCP stands for Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. It is a network protocol used to automatically assign IP address and network configuration parameters to your devices on a network. DHCP simplifies the management and configuration of the IP addresses, subnet mask, default gateways, DNS servers, and other network settings. The advantages of DHCP, which is automatic IP address assignment, like whenever the system is boot up and it is enabled the DHCP, so it gets the IP address, subnet mask, and default gateway and DNS server details to that particular server. DHCP eliminates the need of manual IP configuration, making it easier to manage and scale networks. Decentralized configuration, network administrators can centrally manage and control IP addresses assignments and network settings from the DHCP server. So that's how the DHCP, you can define the pool and how many IP addresses to be allocated, what is the range of the IP address can be allocated to the clients, and which range can be allocated to the clients you can define on the DHCP server that can be centrally managed. Efficient IP address allocation. DHCP optimizes and utilization of the IP addresses by dynamically allocating them only when they are needed. Example, if the client is switched off, the IP is available on the DHCP pool. So you don't need to manually do anything over there. So that's the IP allocation will be efficiently used. What is kickstart file? So I already explained you that what is the kickstart file over here. Kickstart file is a configuration file used by the Anaconda installer, Red Hat based Linux distribution, including the Red Hat Linux, CentOS, Fedora. It automates the installation process by providing the predefined configuration options, which allows for unattended or automated installations. The kickstart file contains a set of instructions and parameters that specify how the operating system should be installed on a target system. Instead of manually going through the installation steps, the Kickstart file provides a way to automate the installation process by defining various configuration options such as partitioning, package selection, letter settings, user accounts, and post installation scripts. So, just Kickstart file is in a predefined configuration file where you just say do the operating system installation like this, then it will auto answer everything to the operating system installation, then it do the installation as per the answer file. The last question is, what is NTP server? How to configure NTP server? So NTP server means network time protocol server, is a network device or server that provides accurate time synchronization to client devices on a network. NTP ensure that all devices on a network using the common accurate time reference, which is essentially for various network operations such as logging, authentication, coordination between the systems. Example, the NTP is not working properly. If your systems are clustered, the systems will have the uh, broken brain, like they act as a, so the protocol is not able to communicate between the servers, the heartbeat is not getting a proper response between the servers, like the first server will send the heartbeat after a few seconds and the second server receives the heartbeat after a few seconds. Then both the servers works as a split brain mechanism, and they initiate the takeover failback in between the cluster nodes. So there's a critical service for any server to be synchronized with the time service. So how we can do that? You can just apt get install ntp, and you can open the slash vi slash etc ntp.configuration file, and you can define the pools, and you can uh, uh, provide that busted definition how you get this synchronized with the ntp server, and the how to get the time synchronized between the clients. These all the questions and answers in this video. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Please subscribe to the channel for more upcoming videos and courses. Please do share with your friends and family so that I get more support on the video to produce on these videos. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel.
Please follow us on social networking sites. One is Facebook. The Facebook page name is @Linux ARKIT. You can click on this button here and click like page so that you can follow us on Facebook. The next one is Instagram. Instagram name page name is arkit.co.in. Click on follow button to follow me. And Twitter, if you have any questions on subject line, or if you have anything, you can just tweet me at aravikumar48, so I will reply you most on the tweet back. For anything related, if you want the latest articles on my website, so here is my website details and email address details. You can reach me over here.